Reatscape. Be just 1 second, people. Bingo. Oh. M0NSTER. 1, 2, 3. Ugh, now Skype needs an update. Things will make me jump goddamn hoops. Eight, 1, 7, 3. I can't remember that. on. Test, test. Alright. Yay, Skype fucking up.
Hello?
Hey, it's just me. I'm bringing you on now. I'm trying to get Trevor on here now.
And I must say, Sasha,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
when did you become 7 foot tall and black?
It's just that this thing has been screwy today. I don't know what's up. Ever since I did the Skype update, it kind of blew out my password and everything else. So, joy.
No, I have it worse. I
Hold
have
on.
2 accounts for my show. And if I get rid of one of them, my Xbox Live system goes out the window. So I have one with credit and one without credit. And if I delete one, my gamer tag goes bye-bye.
Trevor, you on here with us?
I don't see him.
Alright, I'm going to end this one and pick up that one. So give me a second here. Oh. Alright, in theory, I should have both of y'all now. In theory. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hey.
Hello.
Hello?
Alright, I got you too, Chris?
Yeah, I'm here.
Alright, groovy. Alright, you all got the YouTube links and everything, right?
I'm watching it on my phone beside my computer.
Okay, cool, cool. Alright, so this has been a scramble fuck up tonight. I don't know what happened. I got a new camera today.
Light.
Huh?
Isn't that light?
What's light?
Not to be a scrambled fuck up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not to be nihilistic or anything, but oh well.
It's just interesting because it's like I got a new camera, then Skype wants an update, and now of course everything's just not working. And the new camera doesn't want to recognize the microphone on it, so I had to drag out the old shitty microphone. So it's been one thing after another. Yay!
You said you got a new mic. What kind of mic did you get?
Just a Logitech one that's a camera and mic. So I'm back to using the Life Cam on a stick because I'm special. So we'll use that as the mic because it seems to be working at the moment. So anyways, we'll go ahead and get this started here. I'm grabbing my whiskey because I'm just that frustrated. And as anyways, this of course is the Podcast of Darkness. For those of you who've joined us thus far, sorry, audio technical difficulties. And I'm slightly mentally challenged because my pain meds aren't working, my back brace ain't working today, and it's just joy. Now I tried a corset and it's already popped twice, and I'm like, fuck. So, such is life. But anyways, this is the Podcast of Darkness. We are joined tonight by, of course, one of our alumni, Chris Lumser from the Longcoat Mafia podcast, and you guys are celebrating, what, your 20,000th download?
Yeah, we hit roughly about 8, I want to say 8, between 8 and 8:30 p.m. We hit 21,000 total downloads over the past 3.5 plus years, give or take.
That's spectacular.
Yeah,
Wow.
you hit 20,000, what, just this past week?
We hit 20,000, I think, early January, maybe if not early February, and we hit 200 episodes 2 weeks ago.
Nice. Kudos to you. So we have
I'll be totally honest, I'm not familiar with your podcast, so I'm going to have to get on the ball on that one. So I admit my ignorance.
Well, Chris, why don't you give Trevor a little bit of background, then we'll get some of Trevor's background here.
No problem, and I'm bringing Skype to the forefront. My podcast is obviously called the Longcoat Mafia Podcast. We are the internet's most hated mafia-themed geek podcast, and I proudly
We need to talk about Mean Streets.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
It's okay. We tote that badge with high honors. We cover a lot of things that is considered geek, not just pop culture. Meaning, if someone wanted to come on and talk about little crystal elephants that are about 1 inch high for about an hour and a half, I would be more than happy to do that. Because if that's their geek and that's their thing, and if I can make a good episode out of it, heck, I'll have them on. So, I'm not one to be discriminatory in that way. So,
Very cool.
Now, Trevor, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I've been curious about Ambassador Radio, and I've been kind of shy by asking you questions on that, so why don't you give us some details? Because I know you're kind of the music geek that I know, so...
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, thank you, Sasha, for having you. You've been on me for quite a while about doing this, and
it's not usually this much of a clusterfuck, just so you know. Not usually.
That's great. Okay, well, let me give you a little background about myself. You mentioned about Ambassador Radio. Ambassador Radio started, we're going on about 20 years ago as the Global Cafe, and eventually I just, shucked radio stations and started to do it from my own home. Now we're syndicated on about 7 stations. I need to get my ass into gear and get more. But it's basically, I was raised on all kind of music. You're going to hear Frank Zappa beside, Deer Haven, beside Urban Blades, besides Miles Davis, besides Del McCoury, and everything else. That's my shtick there. Now, as far as, being a guest here, horror and film is a huge background for me. All kinds of film, but specifically horror, has always spoken to me. I did my master's work in the study of horror in media. As far as I'd say a specialty, if one wanted to go there, we're using that term, Italian horror, Italian genre films.
Giallo?
Gialli, of course. I'm loosely working on a Gialli, and also some other things pertaining to that, like a paper concept that I found in watching some Lucio Fulci. God bless Lucio Fulci. As an atheist, I say that. So that's kind of my key, but it's kind of an overarching theme of film, since if you put it in retrospect, I'm 43, and I saw Saturday Night Fever in a theater in its first run. Way too young, but that gives you an idea of when cinema started for me to this age.
Yeah, also kind of gave you a whole impression on people with high-pitched voices, too. I mean, the Bee Gees really put it down.
Well, hey, I mean, you can down the Bee Gees as much as you want, but Odessa and back as a music geek is pretty darn cool. And I say that, you can shoot me down on that one, but Odessa is a kick-ass album. But once they, became castrati, it got really creepy.
Hey,
Trevor, let me just say this.
Yes.
First off, Sasha, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
I don't know what you have on your shelves, but I might be somewhat jelly of what you have there and your setup.
Okay. It's been amazingly simple. Not to get technical geek-tastic, but Rode microphone and Adobe Audition. That's it.
No, I'm just talking about what you have on the shelves behind you.
Oh, so you can actually see me. I can't see anybody else.
Right.
Well, as far as that, I've been collecting for way too long, and it's probably put me in the financial situation that I'm in. So, as long as they're boutique labels, they will continue to rate my wallet.
Let me put it like this. Hi, welcome to the club. We're happy to have you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, and the only reason I have like a camera going is this is like the easiest way to get this up on YouTube, because I can stream live right through the PlayStation 4, and it's like, fuck it, easy setup, one click, done. And so we're kind of getting like a dual stream kick up. Now, it's funny because YouTube won't show you the exact counts, but if you pay attention to kind of like the stream itself, every so often a number will appear either on the right or left-hand side of the screen, and it'll say what's actually showing as the counter. By doing this, because we're getting feeds from both people that are just hanging out on the PlayStation watching BoobTube, who want to watch something that's going on live, they'll pop on and we'll get that view. I've had views just on PlayStation Network alone that get you up in like 2,000, 3,000, so you're reaching a new audience. So that's why I kind of do it. Now, Chris has had the unfortunate experience of me trying to kind of back in this through OBS so everybody can see each other. But the problem with that is Chris will tell you about the interesting evening of trying to ice down my modem because it was running so hot. When we say we're low tech here, we don't lie.
Just the term, ice down my modem.
Yes. It was running so hot, I had to take the shell off the wireless router, the shell, so it could breathe better, and then I put it in a Ziploc bag and had it chilling in a bowl of ice. It worked!
Yeah, I remember that. It was quite an evening. The stream went down quite a few times. At least the call did, anyway.
Yes, quite a few times, but we managed. Yeah, we're anything but professional here. We have fun with it. My philosophy when it comes to YouTube, and you probably saw us the other night, Chris, when I posted about how everybody complains about copyright strikes and everything else. I don't monetize anything, because I feel if anybody's going to hit me up for a copyright on something, if they want that 2 cents I make a year off my channel, they can have it if they need it that bad. I don't fucking care. Why monetize? But
that's why one of the videos I have on my personal account, I didn't realize it was copyright. It didn't have a strike. It had a claim on it. And I don't think the people that has the claim on it realize that I don't think they own the actual copyright. I think the independent band does. But I figure out of the 200 views it has gotten in its lifetime that I've had it up, they're only making maybe about a penny or two. Yeah. That's it. Why bother?
Well, it's like...
Now, my show's account, the one that I'm on right now, I deleted it and it's not going back up. Heck, I'm not having that tarnishing my show's account.
Yeah.
I don't care if they want 2 cents.
Well, it's not like, for me, like the way I look at it is that, and you know that I know the guys from Pain because we hang out all the time and whatnot because they do the music for the web show, local band and all. And it's funny, I know Timmy, and I'm all the time picking on him, like, you really need to stop working with CD Baby because CD Baby does all their CDs, but dear God,
yeah,
they put a copyright claim on everything.
Claimed the video with CD Baby.
Yep. I have expressed written consent.
The song I used, they literally said, one band member that was with them said, you could use that song, because I told them I want to make 2 videos. It's going to be this song and this song. And he said pretty much, go with it. We'd be more than happy to have those, those songs done. Well, I want to see what you're able to do. And it took me a few years to actually get those songs done, but still.
But I mean, it's funny because like I could call Timmy up right now, and Timmy would be like, "Yo, yeah, Sasha has permission to do this," but CD Baby can still claim the rights to most of my videos, and I'm like, "Well, I guess they're that hard up for money." So I'm like, whatever, you know. So I'm not even worried about it. I do this for fun. I do it for shits and giggles, and I just get a good laugh.
Copyright is a very, very strange thing that I've dealt with over the years. I also do music promotion, and in my background working with bands and also in radio, and I podcasted a music radio show, which is in copyright world virtually impossible nowadays. It's so easy to get permission from bands, labels. Most bands are just like, you know, if you use it, great, it's additional exposure. But once you get that third party of a business involved, like CD Baby or things like that,
right,
that's when you get really creepy. It has not very little to do with, you know, anything artistic. Yeah, it's a strange monster.
Oh yeah, copyright is interesting. It's the bane of most YouTubers, unfortunately. So, I mean, it's definitely something odd.
But you can still stream an entire album on YouTube, and nothing happens. I haven't gotten that. I haven't gotten up the chutzpah to be like, okay, well, I'm just going to start streaming my show on fucking YouTube and see what happens. But then again, you find entire albums, so I don't understand the legality of that.
All right, I see that Tannen's out there floating around somewhere. I don't know if he's sober, so I shot him a message, and I'm like, yo, you want in? So I don't know if he happens to ping anybody, we can add him. So, but Tannen's interesting. He could be fun to have on occasion. But one of the big things I want to talk about tonight is the whole Disney James Gunn debacle. I know Chris is probably...
Hello. I just decided to turn on my camera, so... I live in for Trevor, I live in an efficiency place, so I don't have a lot of wall space to put up everything, so...
I like your Final Countdown poster.
Oh, yeah. Believe it or not, I got it and the frame for $40 at a local...
Alright, well that's groovy.
Hopefully I want to get it signed. So.
Which Kaufman are we talking about? I'm lost.
Lloyd.
Oh, Lloyd.
Lloyd is in the film.
Lloyd's talking point at the moment, because I think all of us kind of have a background with like James' previous works. Because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, his first film with Troma was Tromeo and Juliet. I might be wrong. I think
you are right on that one.
Personally, I'm not sure, but like I said, I'll say this before we get into James Gunn. My first and only experience with Lloyd Kaufman was back in 2006. He was at Horrified, just on the outskirts of Baltimore. And for the folks watching and or listening, he is kind of like what he presents himself on a lot of interviews, meaning, and then some, meaning when he wants to be a professional, because I got to his table when he was still kind of finishing setting up. He was very professional. Okay, I need this here. This needs to be in the forefront. This needs to be in the background. This is what I want you guys to do. But it was when it was time to be fan friendly. It was like that switch got hit, and he's like the videos, that energetic, that fun guy, and that's who he is. It's I wouldn't say night and day, but when it's time to be the entertainer, he's that entertainer. He is Lloyd Kaufman, the entertainer. But when it's time to be Lloyd Kaufman, the businessman, that's Lloyd Kaufman, the businessman. It was a wonderful experience to see him like that, and it was a pleasant experience. And it was kind of tough to see in one post I shared that it seemed that James Gunn kind of, or at least the article, tossed Lloyd Kaufman and Troma under the bus. So,
well, I mean, Lloyd Kaufman and Troma, I mean, they get a lot of grief, and that's kind of like the nature of the beast. They want to be ranketeers. That's kind of like what they make their Bulldog one. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. Don't get me wrong. I have zero problem with the way that they conduct business and the way that they are. There is absolutely nothing wrong with who they are and how they do things. I mean, never once take me the wrong way on that. But what I find so interesting is with the whole Disney James Gunn debacle is that they all knew where he came from. They all knew 100% where he came from. There was no ands, ifs, or buts about it. He also was involved with several major horror movies before he got involved with Disney. I mean, he wrote the Dawn of the Dead remake, which, in my opinion, one of the better remakes that are out there. It's not great by any means. You know, it's no Cronenberg's The Fly, which is the greatest remake of all time, aside from...
Well, that's the story, but his screenplay for Dawn of the Dead surprised everybody, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Being a huge Romero fan, it was so much more than anybody expected.
Right.
And that's what makes it great.
It surprised the hell out of me. I surely enjoyed it. I tend to be a DVD guy. Don't, please, for the folks out there, don't judge. I'm kind of both. I enjoy digital because I can, in essence, sit on my couch and not move for a few hours. But I enjoy DVDs and their extras. And on that, there is he's kind of doing news segments, and it was like an extras, and it was done beautifully. And I like how it was done.
Right.
Oh, no judging, because I've actually had a discussion recently about digital versus, physical copies. And I don't think physicals are going away anytime soon.
No.
And, you can do as much sitting on your couch going back and forth, making a decision, as much and more fun looking at your collection for a half hour deciding what you're going to watch. And then also, Sasha, I do want to... you said about James Gunn. He did write the screenplay for Romeo and Juliet, and that was his first gig for Troma.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So you're correct.
All right. And he was also involved with Slither, which I think is a very underrated movie. I love the hell out of it.
Did he direct?
I thought he wrote and directed.
I think he directed it, yeah.
But he also wrote it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm pretty sure about that.
So, I mean, he does have a history of doing horror. He does have a history with Troma. And so, I mean, it was surprising when he got the job from Disney, but I figure, Disney is basically making a big deal, and trying to expand on great directors, because he did do a good job on both of those films. Again, zero problem with that. But for them to suddenly, because of social outcry, because of some tweets from, however many years ago it was, for him to go off about that, or them to go off about that and then fire him, to me it was like, you all knew where he came from. And then the flip side of the coin, at least to me, is the fact that he... How can I put it best? The flip side of the coin is that... I'm trying to phrase my words here. Get your words, Sasha. Get your words. But the flip side of the coin is give Disney's history. History with Disney. Disney is racist. Disney has done things
misogynistic.
Yeah, they've done things for the Third Reich, anti-Semitic... But for them to go, oh, well, this is your history, F off, to me that was kind of wrong. And for them to make that decision.
Well, as of now, Gunn is still loosely connected to the project, so they haven't completely cut ties with him. But it is funny how... social media has come back to haunt people, especially somebody like James Gunn, which that was a situation which, there was nothing there. It was sarcastic humor. I don't mean, it is a shame if he's not officially connected or does not get a chance, because I think one of the wonderful things about Gunn being able to do the Guardians of the Galaxy is, whether it was his Troma work or Slither, I think his future in horror and genre is potentially one of our great auteurs, if he's given a chance. Mm-hmm. And maybe him being cut is actually really good, because I know he's been given other offers, and maybe he'll get a chance to actually do a little bit more things that he wants to do. Being strapped to a major company like Disney eventually, suffocates you artistically. Right.
But for me, this is what I didn't get. For Disney to be judgmental because of his history, and I guess they're trying to make good and pretend to be, we're all for social justice and what have you. which is great. But again, it's kind of like you guys are ignoring your own past. You know, just because you vaulted Song of the South, you really haven't made amends for your own past. So how do you have the right to judge anybody? And then the flip side of the coin is now, of course, they've rehired him, which is what trips me out, because I'm sorry, but given the way that James Gunn presents himself, you would have figured the answer would have been, fuck you, you know, I'm going to go with DC and make a better movie. He's like, no, I'm going to get that paycheck too. And to me, it's kind of like, I have no love for either of them at the moment because of it. I have zero love for Disney based on how they handled the situation, where they kind of waffled on it. It's like, make a choice, stand by it, be done with it. And I have zero respect for James Gunn being an auteur if he didn't tell, you know, Disney to fuck off after they came back to their senses.
Well, here's the thing. Before we make a judgment on what James Gunn has done, he's connected back with the film to an extent, because I do think possibly that could end up being cut again, depending on what happens. I'm hoping that, you know, he's a sarcastic person. There's a lot going on in his work, that when the third film comes out, if he is the one who gets to fully write it and fully direct it, there's going to be a lot of underlying cuts to Disney in that film, where he will release a film in which Disney will say, oh, no, we don't want you anymore. If he does that, I have a great deal of respect for him.
As long as he can still get his money and run.
Yeah, well, yeah, that also, you got to give him respect for that, because, you know, he gets money and run, and then go off and do what he really wants to do.
The thing is, what a lot of people don't understand is that Disney, and when you look at companies like Disney and Nickelodeon, respectively, even though we're kind of focusing on Disney, they're both, for the most part, geared towards kids. I think that's their biggest demographic, is kids. What do you classify? Let's say 5 to 15 at least, as a demographic. If something happens to one of their stars, whether they, I think it happened to Britney Spears' sister, like a good many years ago. She got pregnant. She was like still like 13, 14 years old, and she got pregnant, and they pretty much said, guess what, you're canceled because of that. And it's in their, you know, their contract. But how Disney sets up their contract is that, again, this was early 2000s when this happened, but how they learned from that is, I have no idea. But as per James Gunn, how it's going to affect Guardians of the Galaxy 3 or the new Suicide Squad, we will have to see, because Hollywood is, and how the viewership, in my experience, what happens with somebody like James Gunn, or recently with Brie Larson, it's a crapshoot. Either it's going to be an outright success, or if the movie's just going to fail outright. You're never going to know.
Well,
granted, I could be wrong.
And I'm just curious to see what happens next. I mean, to me, the whole situation kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. Because it was cool, because, like, Troma totally backed James after, you know, everything went down with Disney. It's quite respectful that he's even still doing some work with Troma on the side, which I totally respect, because if you ever had any dealings with Troma, you're not going to make any money off Troma. Troma is just fun to do, you know, kind of like what we're doing now. It's just fun to do. You're not going to make a buck off this. But it's just nice that he can still go back to his roots. But to me, it just seems like such a waffling. I just hate it. You know, I hate that Disney didn't stick by their guns. They fell prey to popular demand. I mean, what's next? Are they going to remake Last Jedi because of this? You know what I mean?
Well, this is an overstatement, and comparing these two people is probably blasphemous. But, you know, if you look at the work of John Mason, so he could make, you know, things like, you know, Killing of a Chinese Bookie and things like that.
Right.
Where I think, you know, Gunn is talented enough and enough of a singular voice, potentially, if not already, in genre cinema, that, you know, he's very schooled in film. That's something that people don't get about the people of Troma. Troma is very much our generation's equivalent to the Corman machine.
Yes.
And they're very schooled in cinema. And so trust me, James Gunn, you know, most likely has seen those Cassavetes films. He's seen, you know, he understands by making a film like Guardians of the Galaxy, he's approaching it in the same way that Lucas approached doing Star Wars after seeing, you know, The Hidden Fortress. You know, maybe overstating it, but I do feel that he's an insanely intelligent person. And we'll see.
Okay. What do you think, Chris? Of course, I said as soon as you take a sip.
Just letting everybody know it's bargain rum and bargain Dr. Pepper. So that's that. I don't have the same. I will say this. My hat is off to Trevor because he has definitely more education than I do in cinema. I've just been pretty much an autodidact for a good many years in regards to cinema. I was definitely late to the game. I wish I had good education in this, but again, I think a lot of people who have routinely watched Sasha's program know. Probably heard me say stuff like I came from a very restrictive household, and what I wanted to do passionately in my after high school education was photography and probably film, but I was not allowed to do that due to my folks saying, okay, you're going to learn electronics right now, but I don't want to learn that. No, you're going to learn that. No, well, we just found out that nurses make $30 an hour here in Florida, so you're going to learn to be a nurse, whether you want to or not. And that was most of my time, and I wanted to learn more about cinema. And it's nice to know that someone like James Gunn has that education and that background. There are filmmakers that are out there, like Ron Howard. I'm not a fan of his films, but I like what he does, per se. And I've learned in the past how to kind of separate myself from being a fan and meaning I could look at something like Guardians of the Galaxy and take a step back and look at it artistically and remove the person who made it from the product itself. So whether or not what he says in his personal time and what he personally believes in, whether what he did in the past with those tweets was quote unquote sarcastic or not, or funny or not, that is him being probably him and has nothing to do with his film style. And a lot of people nowadays don't understand that, or don't really have that training to remove that aspect. And sometimes it can hurt. That's what I was alluding to earlier. And sometimes it could actually hurt a film because folks nowadays don't really understand that you can remove certain things from the equation.
With that argument, to keep in mind, I'm not defending Disney's actions for firing him at all.
No, not me neither.
Just get that.
Business thing.
Just understand that I do not defend that they fired him, but I don't like that they're waffling on it, and I don't like that they can pass somebody a judgment on their own past and knowing full well where the person came from, and yet not look at their own past and go, well, fuck, a gay day in vaulting Song of the South doesn't make up for this.
I could see. I don't mean to interrupt, Trevor. I could see the aspect of the argument that Disney pretty much said, all right, because at this point when they quote unquote fired him, they were still going through the initial stages of the Fox merger, and they probably wanted to say, at least on paper, fire him, and in the open media saying, yeah, we fired him to ease off the public pressure and allow this business decision of the merger to go through easier than the aspect of or controversy of him being still a part of their organization somehow.
I think you have a great point. You mentioned business. And that's the thing. James Gunn is now working in the big leagues. He went from the minors to pow, right into the big leagues. And the thing is that in the big leagues, something small like that, they worry so much about a tarnished image, where, in any other sort of arena, when it comes to the arts, they're very accepting of, well, people might not be exactly the way we want them, but we like their art.
Right.
It's like the argument against Roman Polanski or Woody Allen, where, neither of them, as far as film lovers, have ever dealt with the amount of grief. Well, they've dealt with a lot of grief, but, they haven't been, like, whitewashed completely. Now, Chris, actually, I hate to take it back, but you mentioned about being raised in an amazing film. That is one of the greatest films ever made.
It's a good film, especially if you're watching the good cut of it, not the shitty theatrical American cut. But I don't think that's why Chris is watching.
Well, let me retract the greatest film ever made.
I think
it's very open. For you, is there a point where you, like, whether you sneaked something or the first time that you encountered cinema and pow, it really hit you?
I was always intrigued by cinema and how it was done since I was maybe about 8, 9 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But I was never allowed that aspect to explore that passion. And it was because I always had that aspect of, I want to know how it's done. I want to know I hate to use the analogy, but it kind of fits. I want to know how the magic is done. Mm-hmm. And granted, I don't have that type of, some people in the business in regards to special effects say, in a way, it is kind of magic because there's a sleight of hand, especially in the days prior to CGI being commonplace. It was sleight of hand, it was magic, it was, if you want to use that word, magic, there was an art to it. And that's what I love to do, and that's what I want to get into. But I wasn't allowed to fully explore it, and being in that type of household, as soon as I started to earn an income readily and able to do it, a lot of my movie collection, a lot of my DVD collection had to be, yes, for those folks out there who can't see me, I'm doing air quotes, I had to be smuggled in because, meaning that I'd go out, pick them up, come back in, tell my folks, hey, because I lived with my folks for a good many years, even though I owned the home with them. I was legal age. I tell my folks, hey, I'm taking the dog out. Go out to the back, go to my car with the dog, take the stuff out of my car, bring it back in with the dog once the dog was done with its business, and then bring it to my room and stash it almost like pornography, either under my bed, hidden in the closet, because of that. But when it came to music, because Trevor, Sasha said you're a big music fan and you know a lot about music. When it came to like heavy metal, my first experience with heavy metal was AC/DC's Money Talks.
Okay.
I remember seeing it. I was living in Pennsylvania at the time as a teenager and watching, I think it was the Grammys or something like that, and they were on stage singing that song, and my folks pretty much turned to me and said, no, you're not getting an album whatsoever. You're not listening to them. You're not watching MTV. I remember asking for like a Kiss CD or a record. Nope, not getting it. Asking for a Bruce Springsteen album. Nope, not getting it. Nope. It was my cousin and my aunt that fought tooth and nail to get me a Tom Petty CD. So
I tell you, anytime anybody brings up Kiss, it just immediately reminds me of that movie. I can't think of the name of what it was called, but it's about those guys that get in trouble for like knocking over a school statue, and they got to do like that foster program where you got to be like a big brother to somebody. And they get involved with this one kid, and he introduces him to Kiss music, and he's like, "Love Gun! This song is about his dick!" And every time somebody talks about Kiss, it just pops into my head. Love Gun!
But the thing is, when I finally was trying to I was one of the folks that kind of embraced trying to come out of that mold, restricted mold. And when I've had friends at work tell me, ask me, it's like, what's your favorite like heavy metal band? And I said, I never really got into heavy metal. They were just, you could hear the brakes screeching to a halt and go, what? You never heard any heavy metal? And their response was, give me about 3 days. And this is when burnable, CDR drives were a big thing, and doing in essence, they made me mixtapes, mix CDs, and it's like, no, all right, here's Ozzy, here's Black Sabbath, here's System of a Down, here's this, and when I was getting into punk, my co-host Big Candy was like, he's a big punk head, so to speak, and he was like, what, you never heard punk? Okay, here's the history of punk. Here's this music, here's this music, here's this music. And I credit them, even though I was a big movie buff, I credit them for getting me that taste of almost harder core music. And both him and my other friend who got me into heavy metal, they were guitar players. So it was always, watch the hands, look at this video, watch the hands, look how they do. And when I met my other buddy, my current best friend, one of my best friends, he's also a metalhead. He's also he knows a lot about music, and he's a drummer. And he's always forcing me to go, all right, watch the feet, watch the hands, watch the drummer. This is a trick that you could almost tell that this is coming up with the guitar play, and they know how to kind of the mystique behind it. And it's always fun to talk to them about music from a fan's standpoint.
Well, see, that's what I like about having Trevor on the line, because basically Trevor's gotten the background education. You and I, we kind of just fell into this type of thing, like our nerddom and our
had nothing
geekdom.
better to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you
part of the we were given the okay to actually go into a video store and go like A to Z in horror, and do things like, I lived in Columbia, Maryland for quite a while, and we had all these Asian grocery stores, and given the okay of like, yeah, you can get yourself a video card and then go through all the Cantonese movies.
Kung Fu City.
I love
John Woo City.
Yeah.
That was but you mentioned about mixtapes and stuff like that, people getting you into things. I remember that it was the same with film, and you don't get this nowadays.
Actually,
I talked to a lot of people about.
You got the Spotify share list now, where you can share your Spotify with each other.
Yes, but there are already people that are music fans. Now, my thing is back.
But for the kids, you get what I'm saying? Like with the mixtape?
Yeah. The millennials. It's the millennials,
But,
they don't want to,
but
they don't want to hear,
And they are reissuing Walkmans and stuff now. The kids are getting back in the old media. Like my buddy over in Britain, Tech Moan, he talks about how there's a whole new scene for like the original cassette tapes. Whole new scenes for 8-track. Some of the oldest media that you would think of that's out there, people are still using and listening to. I mean, hell, there's records out there that now can be pretty much ran with a laser instead of a needle, so you're not ruining it.
And I can remember, this was back when I was living in Inwood, here in Berkeley County, West Virginia. I went to
With my gun!
Went to an indoor flea market with Big Candy, and they had in their CD stockpile the soundtrack to the don't judge, the soundtrack to the 1980s Flash Gordon.
Oh, there's no judgment.
That's a great film.
That is a great film.
I love the film.
It's a great film.
They had the album. It's like I had to raise it up above my head and ask, how much is this CD? And they went, $1. I went, I gotta know if I got $1. I need to buy this.
Hey, no judgment. I saw that in a theater 5 times.
Yes.
Oh, I watched it all the time. And when I was starting to buy my own CDs, the first band I tried to purchase along with Tom Petty was Queen. And my folks at the time, especially my father was like, Queen, who the hell are... Now, this is a man who watched with me as a kid every time it was on TV. Flash Gordon. Didn't realize these were the same folks who did the soundtrack. Probably at that same time when I was buying those CDs, watched was sitting with me as a 17-year-old, 16, 17-year-old watching Highlander on TV, on demand at the time. Didn't understand that this was the band that made the soundtrack for these movies, and I was the one that was just slowly learning about these, and again through great friends of mine, they did this, who knew more than I did, that were educating me, and I was learning that way, and it's a wonderful experience learning. I wouldn't say through fans. Sometimes I'm not knocking, again, Trevor, I'm not knocking your education, but learning that through a self-taught system can be just as good as through school.
Well, everything I've done is self-taught. I have gone to school.
But you've gone to school,
but, you know, it's all self-taught. I learned the most from, just being around people who had an interest. And what you do is, you pass it along.
Mm-hmm.
I did, consulting and radio work for college radio stations for years. I remember people coming up to me and going, I like Blink 182. I'm like, wait, okay, here's a Clash CD. Here's a Fugazi CD. Here's an Ian Dury CD.
There's some good music.
This is stuff that you need to understand, Or people like, oh, we're goth. I'm like, okay, here's Susie and the Banshees, here's Bauhaus, let's go a little deeper here. Let's go, tones on tail and shit. And that's always been my philosophy. I want people to learn. I want to pass it on. People taught me, and I want to pass that on.
But you're sharing. That's what the important thing is. You're sharing. You're sharing what you feel is good.
Exactly.
And that's.
And the thing is. My ex, I want to say,
let's come around to your ex.
I'm not like you, Trevor. I'm not really an atheist. I'm more agnostic leaning than I am atheist. But she, at the time, was really into singing and vocal work. And again, through my friends who were really into music and, music heads. And one of the things that one of my friends gave me was the band Rain Fell Within, which is a kind of, I wouldn't say it's operatic rock or operatic metal. And I pretty much said to her, it's like, listen to this. She does, it's operatic metal. You'll get a kick out of this. And she, most types of music, more so than others. But, and...
Well, I just think
Yes, in radio, that's dead air.
Oh no! I just think it's so funny y'all brought up like friggin' Flash Gordon. That just tickled me beyond belief because.
Dude, there's a documentary out right now about the making of it. Has anybody seen the documentary?
No, I haven't.
No.
There's a either it has been made. I thought it was crowdfunded, and I think it's been finished. But it's about the making of Flash Gordon, and it's specifically about the actor and the film and what he ended up doing, because he just pretty much disappeared after that.
Right. Huh. Yeah.
I'm sure. Speaking of documentaries,
Sing the Merciless. Oh my God.
I mean,
talk about beauty.
I hate to say it, but as a trans woman, that movie ruined me with men. Because if you all don't like badass, big, thick bikers with beards and wings, I want nothing to do with it.
We're a near God kind of person,
kind of movie documentaries. Have you guys seen? Sasha, I don't need to use the guys. Just
that's fine. You know me. I'm not overly sensitive. I'm sensitive, but I ain't overly sensitive.
But have you seen the documentary on Canon Films?
Yes.
No, I have not.
Oh, you gotta watch it. Oh, you got it's on Netflix.
I kind of want to watch
Netflix.
I kind of want to watch the end of Canon Films because after they did He-Man and everything kind of went to shit.
No, it goes on into Canon Films, not the films per se, but the studio, the stories behind it, and I was at the. Granted, nowadays we have the beauty of IMDb behind everything. That hey, that person looks familiar, and you look up their name, but. I didn't know Mira Cedris, Counselor Troy. Let's put it like that. That's who she's most known for. I didn't know she was in a lot of canon films. I was like, holy shit! Really?
Now with
So
canon, and this is something I've often wondered with canon, and this is something that's always kind of bugged me, because I know there for a while they had the rights to do Spider-Man as a movie. And I know for the longest time that James Cameron had a treatment for Spider-Man. Was that one and the same? Was James Cameron working for canon at the time?
Personally, I don't think... I didn't hear any rumors that Cameron was
Spawn or
Piranha
for 2 wasn't canon, was it?
No, it wasn't. Piranha was Corman. That was New World.
That's right. He also
he
did the Piranha 2 also. So,
I know Corman did a lot of stuff, and
real
Corman
quick,
movies make me yell at my TV.
I love Corman.
No, I love Corman movies, but the reason why I say they make me yell at my TV is that I become that armchair quarterback. Why did you pick up a freaking rolling pin to beat up the monster? You walked by a whole knife set and swords hanging on your wall for a rolling pin. So,
well, I've been watching a lot of Cheese lately, and I don't mean like Corman, because I love Corman to death, but I've been watching a lot of Cheese, and it blew my mind because I know Jim Wynorski, which I think is hilarious. Because, like, I can talk about, like, friggin' Chopping Mall, and he'll pop up on my feed going, why are you talking about my movie again? I'm like, dude, I just fucking love Chopping Mall. But...
I love...
It's a great
film. I grew up watching those movies. Where I grew up, granted in my life I've moved around a lot, but in my early years, I'm about the same age as Trevor, and where I grew up was Long Island, New York, Suffolk County. And like most places during the 80s, especially the early 80s, for the folks at home, at about 12 noon, when cartoons got done on a Saturday, yes, there were cartoons on a Saturday, kids, you had one of several things happen in your area. 1, wrestling. 2, bowling. Or 3, some other sports. Or you got the equivalent or the local equivalent of a Elvira or a Dr. Morgus or something along those lines. And my area had Dr. Morgus. And watching Dr. Morgus, watching Godzilla films, Toho, loving Toho, and watching the old school
Kung Fu.
Yes. I told you, take it out of the package.
The kids got this for me for my 43rd, which was this weekend.
And watching the old school, I don't want to say bad, but the badly dubbed Kung Fu movies, that was my childhood.
The Shaw Brothers. That was on the tip of my tongue earlier. Sorry, I just go Shaw Brothers.
But that was, when I was watching Dr. Morgus and these cheesy movies from the 50s, I remember, my father saying, Dr. Morgus, I remember watching him as a kid. But that's kind of the beauty of it all. I grew up watching those cheesy movies. It's part of why I love independent films today. And granted, I'm going to plug it right here. That's why I'm part of a cheesy B independent film that is coming out at 4 State Comic-Con this weekend in Hagerstown, Maryland. It's called Bigfoot with an exclamation mark. It should be on video on demand sometime later this year. I'll say it like that. I don't know the exact date. But soon after this weekend, you should be able to find it on DVD somewhere. But
not on Amazon, because they suck with independent films.
Right.
They do. But Amazon also is doing a great job of licensing the independent boutiques, like your Arrows and your Severins and your Vinegar Syndromes. Now, I want to take it back a little bit here to what you were saying about the influence of television when we were growing up versus the influence of television now as far as, shaping a movie lover. For me, in my area, it was Sundays. So on Sunday, I forget what channel it was, would do 2 films. Usually it was, 1950s, atomic Red Scare film and a Godzilla film. And they just entranced me. They were wonderful. And that's where I really got my first, taste of genre cinema.
Isn't that what we were getting into the other day? A little bit?
I think we did, actually.
Yeah, because we were talking about, like, 50s B movie, giant bugs.
Well, I just watched Deadly Mantis last night after years and years of not seeing it.
No, we deviated. So, you went small. I was going large. You all of a sudden said Phase 4.
I found my Phase 6.
Phase 6?
I found it. Phase 6, right?
Phase 4.
Phase 4, okay. That's right, Phase 4. So, got me there. There was another thing I was going to point out, and I lost my train of thought. It was something you were saying, Chris. So you talked about, watching movies as a kid on, the weekends, and these horror hosts. Well, I'll remember at some point. But
you said
quick,
you said something about Sundays. Does that help?
Yes, we were talking about that.
But you brought up what you did on Sundays.
Interject for anybody about that Canon documentary. It's called Electric Boogaloo.
Okay.
And it is phenomenal. The closest thing to a major that Grindhouse ever had.
So, something, since we're all kind of like kids of the 80s, that I want to bring up, and this is something that's been interesting with fandom because my son's gotten into it. I hate Bayformers. I fucking hate Bayformers. But the Transformers franchise, with the recent movie Bumblebee, with the night...
I haven't seen Bumblebee yet.
Bumblebee
I'll see it.
Is a complete reboot, which is what excited me. I'm like, wait. You're like, fuck the Bayformers. We're doing straight up G1 Transformers that actually look like G1 Transformers instead of ripped apart car parts for hours. I'm like, okay, I'm cool with that. But yet somehow, for some reason, they're going to have this reboot series going on and continuing with, Bumblebee, Bumblebee 2, maybe an Optimus Prime, Bumblebee buddy picture. But they're going to keep that 80s G1 vibe with that series, but yet they're going to continue the Bayverse. And I'm kind of blown by that. I'm like, why?
The Bayverse. I love that. Wow, I have very strong feelings about Michael Bay.
Yes, I think we all do.
I'll give him props on The Rock. I'll give him props there, but he had great actors to work with. But otherwise, okay,
and Bad Boys.
The Abyss. Okay, give him props on there too. But here's the thing. Overall, no wait, this was Cameron, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Cameron.
Okay,
he did Bad Boys.
Sorry, I'm flubbing up, unfortunately, a couple times here. But here's my thing with Michael Bay. I think he's the ultimate hack.
Yes.
And my thing about, I was not a Transformer kid, but I went into the first Transformer movie expecting bubblegum, and it wasn't good. Now, I went to the second film, and
that was horrible.
I'd say probably the last 40 minutes were so poorly edited, and you had no idea what was going on because everything looked the same. That is when I decided, how could a director allow something this much of a clusterfuck to come out under his name? So yeah. I don't know how,
Well, see, that's what I thought was so interesting.
Wait. Hold on, Sasha. Trevor, are you neglecting M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong?
Here's my thing. M. Night Shyamalan is a very strange movie because, M. Night Shyamalan can either be right on target or you have Last Airbender. He
made that movie for his kids. Come on.
Well, yeah, I'm not gonna.
He let his kids down.
Yeah, he left his kids down big time. The poor guy, even his kids probably looked at him and went, "Dad, you screwed up," So, but I've actually let myself go on Shyamalan's last couple films. I did not see Glass.
I have not either.
I wanted to because Unbreakable, I think, is a phenomenal film.
Yes.
Unbreakable got me back into collecting comics when it came out.
Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy got me back to collecting comics. My first film with my daughter was the first Guardians of the Galaxy, and that then led to her wanting to go to a comic book store. And we went to New York and went to Forbidden Planet, and she wanted to go to a comic book store, so we went there. And I'm there standing at the guy, and I'm like, hey, give me two, graphic novels. So he hands me Nailed, and he hands me Scout by Jason Aaron. And after that, pow, I was back in.
And like I said, for me, in 2000, 2001. So the superhero boom did not really happen yet, or at least at that time it was starting, because the original X-Men was in the process of coming out or being done, and I was like, where do I begin? Where do I begin? And looking through my fairly sizable VHS collection at the time, I was like, where do I begin? And my eyes just rested right on Battle Angel Alita.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to, eBay's out there. I'm going to start my collection with Battle Angel Alita. And that's in essence where I started, both buying that series and going from there and talking to, again, a lot of the same friends. Okay, I want to get back into comics. Where do I begin? And the one friend that got me into metal was like, okay, because you're my friend, I'm going to start you with, in essence, what I like and see, let you test the boat. And he got me into Sandman. He got me into...
Can you repeat that again? Because you froze on me.
It was the same friend that got me into, like, heavy metal music.
And he got you into...
Sandman.
Sandman, yes, okay, that's where you're from.
Sandman. Okay. He got me into Transmet. He got our Transmetropolitan. He got me. I'll say it to this day, and I'll argue with Sasha. My black heart is coming out of my chest. Spider Jerusalem is my spirit animal. He got me into a lot of the independent stuff that is beyond Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, and X-Men, but he got me into those titles, and it's like it's more than just Spider-Man and Superman, and I just ate it up, got the individual issues, and just started reading thanks to eBay, and that's where most of my money during that time period went to. It's like, Transmet issues, 5 through 43 for $10. Bye. So.
Well, I think our comic book thing is a little similar, because back in the 90s, I was into comic books, and I was more into the independent realm. Like, Grendel was a big thing for me, and of course, Obar's Crow. And then I got out of it, and I found myself, when I got back in, the whole, like, DC and Marvel universe was daunting. I mean, people who were hardcore comic fans, like, well, this happens here, this happens, this, I need this, I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, I don't have, like, the next 10 years of my life to get caught up with, like, this version of Secret Wars. So I veered toward the independents again. I veered toward Image and things like that, which also became more connected to, even though we have the Marvel and the DC cinematic universe, what is being done independently in comics would translate so much better to film.
Right.
So you have so much out there, especially Image right now, that has a lot more in common either with out there, like, sci-fi operas, or like, Swedish detective films. So I don't know why they're not being done, but that's where my background is also, the independent comics. That's where it was at.
Well, a lot of that independent stuff is actually getting made. What was that sci-fi movie that came out a couple years back by Gaumont Studios?
Yes.
It was done by a French comic book creator.
Oh, that was, are you talking about the one with the train?
No, it was all sci-fi, different planets, kind of like a spy. Had a boy and a girl in it. The boy was kind of like that really... He was in one of the Spider-Man...
Was it Valkyrian? Or
yeah, Valkyrian.
Yes, Valkyrian, yes.
So, I mean, some of that stuff is getting attention where it needs to be, which is great. Like, what is it now? Love, Death, and Robots? I mean, that was actually meant to be like a reboot of heavy metal, and a lot of people don't realize that.
Now, my friend Dahmer got made into a film. Unfortunately, it didn't get the backing that it should have been in a phenomenal graphic novel that it is. So, yeah, they are being made, but there's a lot of source material that could make great, intense, lasting films. So, I mean, anything could be... I don't know what you feel about the DC universe, but I have pretty much been let down by everything but Wonder Woman.
I haven't seen Aquaman yet, but everything has, like, I agree, a lot of it has been very lackluster in regards to it, for the exception of Wonder Woman. And it's kind of what I tend to rant and rave about on my show sometimes, is that because my ear is somewhat close to the ground with some of the news sources, and it's like, okay, I'm hearing about this, and like, why are you complaining about this? The less you say, the better. Granted, some people might say bad press is still good press because it's getting out there. But again, I can also argue the fact that sometimes bad press is, in essence, bad press. It could, when it comes to Hollywood, it could hinder a movie, but that's beside the point. It's with DC. I love what they did with Wonder Woman. They did it very well. I want to see Wonder Woman 1984. Granted, when it comes to films, I think we could all agree that there's always going to be a difference between a cinematic series, if there is a series, and a book series, or in this case, a comic series. Mm-hmm. But granted, a lot of times it might not be fully capable. They might not be fully capable to do, or logical to do a correct adaptation to from book to film.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But that I can understand. I guess it's personal taste, mm-hmm. But.
Well, I think with DC, because you kind of gotten off the subject completely where we started, Sasha, but I think my thing with DC is, I very much agree, the adaptation from the book to film, whatever it might be, is going to be very different. The thing is, the Marvel films have been fun and they've been pretty well made. And unfortunately, how they've been making the DC movies is the films just themselves are slightly inept. I mean, take Aquaman, for example. I'm not going to say it's a bad film. It was at first, I took my son to it, and I had an amazing time because my son is loving it. But then after I left the film, I started thinking about it, going, wait, this part of this film, the whole Manta thing, let's take that for example, should have been in another film. That they got too confident and made way too long a film. And that's DC's problem. And that's Fox's problem. They, I think, are not looking at it from a cinematic aspect. And all the films have this weird hue to them that's very disturbing.
That's DC's problem all along. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you can go further back than the DC EAU or whatever you want to call it now. Mm-hmm. But when you go back...
Pardon me, Sasha?
Huh?
I'm getting like an error message from your live stream. I don't know if it's video problem or an audio issue.
Yeah, it's okay. We're still live somehow. Let me take a look at that.
Okay. I just wanted to let you know. I just wanted to hop in and see what was going on.
I still have everything recording in back process, so it'll figure out. So it's all good. Sometimes PlayStation Network can be
finicky.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
I still run OBS in the background. I'm just not OBS and mixing because if you OBS and mix, it fucks everything up.
Okay. All right, so I just wanted to let you know. I wanted to check in on things over there, but.
Yeah, it's fine. We're still on PlayStation Network, so I don't know why YouTube's being YouTube. But with DC EAU or whatever you want to call it currently, with the DC universe in the cinematic realm, it's intriguing because as far back as even Tim Burton's Batman, they started to get too overconfident. Like, look at the first Batman movie. It was perfect to a degree. I'm not saying it was straight up the way it should have been. Don't get me wrong. And then the second movie came along. You had two villains in there. Okay? And that's when they started getting cocky. And then all of a sudden we had a whole new Batman for the third film. And then another new Batman. And then it kind of became James Bond, tongue-in-cheek bullshit. Even with the Superman movies. Let's be honest.
And let's not forget Bat Nipple.
Yeah. Bat Nipple aside, but like you can even see it in kind of like the 70s. They got way too overconfident.
I love that. Mm-hmm.
I mean, like Richard Pryor in a fucking Superman movie. Did we really need that?
But here's the thing. Here's where that worked. And this is one of my big issues with contemporary DC and Fox producing films. Now, where it works with Marvel and Disney is that there's always this sense. It also goes back to the comic books themselves of self-parody. They don't take themselves seriously. And the DC films, every time I watch a DC film, it takes itself almost too painfully seriously. They'll try to put humor in there, but it doesn't do it well. I mean, I like Batman versus Superman, things like that. It just, even Suicide Squad, it just got this air of taking itself so amazingly seriously. And I'm not a DC person, I'm not a Marvel person, but I've read, Jason Aaron's arc of Aquaman. I'm reading a couple other arcs of Aquaman. And one of the things about DC is it's always had good writing. And I think that's also how they're leaving people down. So writing for DC, no matter how badly the characters suck, has been, on par with some of the best writing in those two different companies. And they're always akin to this amazing self-deprecation and humor, and the films haven't cut it.
Well,
Justice League just didn't have it.
This is what I don't get, and this is what I find interesting. So let's look at the Keanu Reeves Constantine movie and compare that to Constantine the TV show.
Well, let me
I
just
think they
say
just
this.
flop
I'm gonna
outside of
correct,
TV.
Before we go into the TV aspect of things, let me correct Trevor in a little bit. DC's live action movies, for the most part, have been, and I agree, terrible. But their animated films have always been killer. They've been at, if not above par, for what I don't know what the reason is. It could be the fact that they could do more with animation than they could with live action. But when it comes to that, they've been on, perfect.
It's great.
In regards to having the voice acting, the animation style, and everything, there's numerous examples. But when it comes to the live action, for the exception, I'm just removing Wonder Woman from the equation on this the best way I can, has for the most part been troublesome. And when it comes to the Marvel aspect, it's been almost the reverse. When you look at the Marvel animation stuff, for the most part, their movies are not at the same quality as the DC side. It's like almost the polar opposite. Their animation movies are not that good, yet their live action films are perfect. And they're as you said, they're witty. Even when they're serious, it's not dark. It's bright. They don't have to do the brooding. There's a little bit of humor touched into it or added to it. It's not completely taking you down that dark, dismal path. And I got flack from my female co-host when she was with the show in regards to Batman versus Superman, is because I tried to tell her, it's like, this is not just Batman versus Superman in regards to I think it was the movie was trying to do not just Dark Knight Rises, I think Dark Knight Returns. It was also doing Death of Superman as well. It was like doing 3 different storylines at once, and that's where it was going wrong. And not to mention the other problems that the movie was having. You could cite the aspect of Lex Luthor and the flashbacks, forwards, dream sequences that Bruce Wayne, Batman was having. That whole aspect, you just had all these aspects just not melding right. And it's like, but this is a good movie. It's okay, but as a comic book fan who kind of knows the DC universe, this is just 4 storylines, 5 storylines that are not mixing well. And there were other instances where we had disagreements in regards to how some movies were made and that she liked. And at the time, she was working as a I don't want to say a usher, but she was working at the Alamo Draft House in Winchester. And my point at one of the movies that we were talking about is like, well, you're in essence you're an usher. You're not really seeing the whole movie. You're going in every maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes for 5 minutes. You're not really seeing the whole movie. And if you're seeing the whole movie over the span of a week, you're not really getting the whole context of a scene. And I don't think she really understood that aspect of film. I want to say film theory, but the aspect of watching a movie a scene from beginning to end, or a little bit of how you want to put it. But it was, again, with Batman versus Superman, it's just, or DC films in total, it's a weird beast. Now, I had a weird experience when I was watching Watchmen when it was in theaters. And granted, as we stated and agreed upon, that the source material is way different than the movie material. And again, like it or hate it, I enjoyed Watchmen. And I enjoyed the edit a little bit more.